Welcome, Wargamers, to the choked city on the edge of death here in the Mortal Realms. Today we're talking about Ulfenkarn again, but now none of this Mournhold business, and instead of a history lesson, we're going to talk about what the city is like now. If the change was big enough for a name swap, right, what is it like? If it was once a bastion of order in Shyish, what does it look like now that murder and death and, vampire rule has become the norm? Now, this is going to be a spoiler-free discussion for you DMs out there. I shouldn't be revealing anything to ruin your stories. This is just to educate people and kind of take some of the burden off of you introducing people to this city. Courtesy of Cubicle 7, the awesome folks who make this role-playing game. Again, this is Ulfenkarn for Age of Sigmar Soulbound. And you can support both me and Cubicle 7 by shopping and snagging your Soulbound stuff from any one of the links in my link tree down below. It supports me, my wife, our cats, the whole thing, and I could not be more thankful for all of you. Now, back to Ulfenkarn. I want to approach this chat in two ways, because role-playing games are a little bit different. It's not just about facts on a page, it's about vibe. And so in talking about Ulfenkarn now, I want to approach one perspective as like a history book, and then the other as more of a boots-on-the-ground kind of lived experience. And to me, comparing and contrasting these two perspectives is the most fascinating part of history in the real world. You can read your history books about how a war went down, then you read the diaries of the people who fought it, and they can be totally different, even though they're talking about the same thing. And so let's kick this off textbook style, the kind of informational video that your teacher played on Fridays because they were tired of being around children. Ulfenkarn is a fantastic, dark iteration of a medieval city. One colossal fortification that sticks out of the earth like a fang coming through the ground. That is the home of Radjikar the Wolf, the Ebony Citadel itself. At its base are the homes of the most elite in his court and whoever is in his particular favor at that moment. And immediately surrounding this whole little area is a perimeter gate with a single entrance called the Mourn Gate. Now, the reason I point all of this out in such detail is because even if a full army was to come assail the city, this entire sector is a fort unto itself. This will matter in future adventures. And spreading out from this central point of murder and mayhem is a wide system of roads called the Bloodways. And it's almost impossible to get around the city without engaging with these roads in some way. However, it's very dangerous to go out on them in any capacity, certainly trying to cross them. During the day, you'll see patrols of like the skeletal guard who are killing people, and necromancers are rezzing any dead bodies that they find from the night before. At night, these thoroughfares become the hunting grounds of the Soulblight vampires, and they effectively isolate the city into its various districts and kind of separate and subjugate everybody. Now, like I said, in between these long stretches called the Bloodways are a few distinct districts that all have their own unique problems. These are Gaunt's Lectern, Ebon Shade, White Mark, the Black Lanes, and Vossheim. Surrounding all of these is yet another wall. But I'm going to be honest with you, within these districts, like within this kind of second enclosure of the wall, is where most of the game happens. Outside, there's some scant farming and shanty towns, but like a lot of the adventures you're going to be on are within these particular districts. Of course, your mileage will vary depending on where your adventure takes you, but broad strokes. Now, each of those regions that I just mentioned is ruled over by a direct subordinate of Radjikar himself. This is his royal court, and if you've ever seen Warhammer Quest Cursed City, it's all the boss models that you get from that game. Now, as I did in the last video, I'll have a link down in the description to some other Cursed City content I did. We had like half a paragraph each on these characters, and I did the best I could, but there just wasn't a lot of information. I'm going to be redoing those videos for these characters because I'm very excited about them. But if you just want to get some quick information, that is down there for you. The short story, again, we're doing our top-down view, is to get to Radjikar, you have to defeat all of his lieutenants. You have to basically dismantle the grip that is around the throat of the city. Now, the trick to this, and why it's never worked before, is that the gift that you get for being a part of Radjikar's Grand Court is something called a phylactery. Essentially, You bind a little death magic to a human soul, which puts them in perpetual torment, but it tethers the royal, family member with immortality so long as that human is alive. Now, it's not a long-term solution, but it's like a little backup save if you need to be rotated out. So you'll need to take out the phylacteries, so kill their auto-save, if you will, then kill the leader for them to stay dead. Once all the districts are cleared, that's really going to kind of break Radjikar's power on the city. And my understanding from reading this is that this is common knowledge. There's no big revelation. The phylacteries are made to be a demonstration of the kind of torture, one of the many kinds of torture that you can experience at the hands of your overlords. You'll have to take these leaders out as quests unfold, but how, when, and why is better left to your game master and the specific townfolk of that district. Like I said, they are all very different kinds of problems. The last thing I want to talk about here is the Shyish Nadir. Now, I touched on this briefly in my last video, but we're going to talk about it more today. The ritual that Nagash did to kind of concentrate all death magic had a secondary effect. Normally in a realm, the most stable part of existence there is the center of the realm, where it's almost like being in real life, right? Think Tolkien-esque. Then as you go closer to the edge, magic kind of unravels and it gets a little bit more wild. That's where in the realm of fire, things start bursting into flames and so on. When he did the Necroquake, Nagash basically inverted that. So now all the death magic is in the dead center, and it becomes more stable towards the rim. This matters because of where Mournhold and now Ulfenkarn is situated. It's not very far at all from the epicenter of the Nadir itself. This big open maw of death magic that's kind of slowly pulling the realms towards it. It's the vortex of death magic that the city is slowly sinking into, and this is what caused Radjikar to have such a dramatic increase in power when he made his big moves. Now, what's interesting to note here is that the mood and the atmosphere and the spirits of the mortals living in Ulfenkarn has a direct result on how quickly or slowly it falls into the Nadir. The more that the population is filled with fear and hopelessness and doubt, the city kind of becomes a little bit more unstable. It inches towards its own Armageddon. But if, say, an intrepid band of heroes was to come and fill this same population with hope, determination, and might, the city itself begins to stabilize. Meaning, in a very real sense, the world changes to your actions, how you satisfy the needs and the wants of the people, and how you use them to take on the bosses. So with that out of the way, the textbook time is over. Let's talk about experiencing Ulfenkarn in a practical sense, right? Boots on the ground point of view. Well, your day is going to begin, as always, at sunrise. You slept terribly because you always sleep terribly. It's daytime, but you'd barely know it because Ulfenkarn in the day is only slightly brighter than Ulfenkarn at night because they're trapped in a perpetual dusk. Your job today, and every day, is to gather what food you can muster from the farms and do your best to survive. You're kind of herded down the streets into the little open farming area. You're avoiding the corpses that are strewn across the streets from last night's victims, the folks who didn't make it. Past the patrols of the Ulfen Watch, those undead skeletons and their necromancer lords. They were stopping at every corpse to recruit a new member into their order, and as you're watching this happen, there's a terrible sense of inevitability that one day you are going to be one of those skeletons. It's just gonna happen. But you shake the thought, we have work to do, so you head out, like cattle, into the yard for work. There's bad fishing and worse farming. Which you choose is up to you. What's consistent in both is that you're putting in far more labor than you're getting in terms of food back at you. It's almost like it's just never quite enough to be healthy. Throughout your day, as you're breaking your back working, you're going to see a consistent ritual happening around you. This is the blood tithe. This can be a necromancer or vampires in the evening if they want to, that come up and demand a blood sacrifice. Basically, they'll put it in a jar, urn, or bottle, and then bring it to their lords at night. Now, this is kind of used for a lot of things. One, it's for punishment for the slightest perceived offense. If you do anything wrong, we'll bleed you, and it's better to bleed and live. It can also be used as a motivator to quote-unquote work harder. So you drain one person, hoping it'll to negatively reinforce work ethic into everybody else. And it's also a way to suppress the strength of the masses. So if that same necromancer just sees that one person in the village is getting particularly strong and kind of broad-shouldered and, kind of looks like they could put up a struggle, just keep draining them of blood and you'll keep them at a weakened state. But because of the nature of this, blood tithes have also become a bargaining chip. And this is something that your explorers should definitely know. Because it's so common, offering to be bled on behalf of someone else has become its own kind of currency, like a crude IOU system that exists only for the cattle. So as your heroes are exploring the city, you'll see people take bleedings for one another and basically exchange IOUs for that. So you'll work your hard day, likely get bled at some point, and then you'll shuffle back into the city as darkness approaches. Now the trick for your day is to find a place of sanctuary. There are a few scant ones, you have to explore the city to find them, but they do exist. Because otherwise you are essentially a rat getting locked into a cage of predators at the end of the day. They shuffle everyone back into the city, and then unleash the vampires in it. Now it all begins, of course, with the vermin. Rat swarms are spewing out of the sewer works. Bats are out there blackening out whatever little of the moon you can see. First, the lesser vampires, those of little repute, but always looking to kind of rise in the ranks of the court, are out first, getting their hunting out there. After them, the nobility begins to prowl, and each one of these is their own vicious kind of murderer, whose only real source of entertainment and sustenance is scurrying around them in these tight corridors. And so you're running between alleys and you're ducking out of view. You'll hear Soulblight vampires laughing at you because some of them see this as a game of sport. Others are like ravenous beasts, so you'll only hear them like scream and shriek. And it's just perpetual running. Think like World War Z level of just, it's a constant motion is life, keep moving and running kind of idea. At some point, probably only a few hours till sunrise, you'll find a shack or a cove or, an indent in the wall, something where the rats and the bats struggle to get you, and you'll catch a few hours of meager sleep, and you'll do it all again tomorrow because it's a normal Tuesday. Now, I like to end all my videos talking about why is this cool, right? It sounds so dark and so morbid and all these things. Why do I want to go to Ulfenkarn as an adventurer, as a soulbound? Well, in no uncertain terms, Ulfenkarn is dying. Like, it literally says Ulfenkarn's a dying city in the book. Cannot get around that fact. And that's exactly what Radjikar seems to want. He wants to bleed the city slowly. In fact, part of the adventure is understanding his motivations, but this environment is meant to be painful and miserable and slowly rolling downhill. You and your warband are the ones who have to kind of take up the Sisyphean task of reversing this. And it's bleak, but it also creates moments where you as players and you as a GM can make a significant difference. And there's a lot of catharsis to be felt. I'm not, like I said, not doing any spoilers. I've just read through a few of the little minor interactions and quests and that kind of stuff. And step by step, chipping away at the death grip at the heart of this city means that every small act of kindness, saving someone who would otherwise have been killed, has massive impacts. But those impacts have to be very big and intentional. So what I mean by that is restoring hope and, intentionality and determination to the populace has a very tangible reaction on the world around you. And it feels great. But to restore hope and all these kinds of things, you have to do some big haymaker swings. Like kill the phylactery and then each boss kind of thing, going sector to sector, rooting out the heart of what's keeping Radjikar in power. So you'll actively change the city over the course of a quest here. It's going to require some heroism, but you'll feel like you're doing it. And that's awesome. That's ultimately what I want. The city itself has a fantastic structure to it. I'm a big fan. Things just to kind of note here on the end, every district that we mentioned, there's like 5 outer districts from the Black Citadel, the Ebony Citadel itself. All of those have their own, traders, town halls, all of that kind of stuff. So there are functionally cities unto themselves, again, isolated by the Bloodworks. But so going into each one of them is a different experience, and you get that same catharsis, but you're helping different people with different problems. So I thoroughly enjoy it. I would love for you guys to pick up this book and enjoy it yourselves. Let me know in the comments down below what you would like to explore in Ulfenkarn next, because quite frankly, I want to do a lot of content with this book, but I don't know what people, A, want to learn about, and B, how to approach it in a spoiler-free way. So let me know some general stuff if you're a game master, or what could help you and your players down below. I would love to do that for you. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you next time. Happy wargaming.